fat loss should be a phase, not your way of life. What's going on, fam? Angus Beef here. Thanks for just stopping by to click on this video. Really appreciate it. Today I want to talk about the aspect that is not common knowledge and not commonly sort of like grasped, and that is that fat loss should be a phase, not something that's your way of life. So what I mean by this is that what I find is that when I'm having discussions with people that are on a body transformation journey, what I find is that they've been on this journey for a very long time. And that's simply because they are consistently trying to diet and chase fat loss, which is one of the biggest disservices you can do. Because once you realize that when you are trying to like eat and train and live in a fat loss oriented manner, it's important that you remember that this is what triggers a lot of your body's protective and survival mechanisms to negate those efforts to keep you safe. So this is basically where you'll find that, you know, usually you might be able to stick to a diet for a few weeks, if that, and you'll find that it becomes increasingly more difficult to stick to. And that's not because the diet is just overly hard. Like, most of them are pretty hard, don't get me wrong, but why it becomes insatiably harder to be able to stick to and easier to regain weight is because that's your body doing its best to get you off of that perceived threat and destruction. Meaning that when you spend the bulk of your time trying to be in a deficit and trying to diet, guess what your body's gonna do? And build up like bigger and bigger, stronger Great Walls of China to be able to defend against your efforts. So the reason why fat loss should only be a phase rather than your way of life is because we're not built, and your body's not built to be in a frame of like perception where it always thinks that there's threat going on, because like like what way of life is that? You see what I mean? So what you need to be looking at here in terms of like an alternate outlook is that fat loss should only be for a period of time. So let's say, for example, that you're overweight, right? And you've been overweight and trying to lose weight for a long time. Well, then what's going to be a good way forward here for you is to take your focus off of dieting, off of fat loss, and focus on reverse dieting for a while so that you can get your body more accustomed to being on more calories for once, and to nourish it and to give it reason to validate the fact that there's no threat going on. So a reverse dieting process, you could add in more calories up to your perceived maintenance intake, basically as conservatively or as aggressively as you want, and you would do that up to the point where you are eating your perceived maintenance intake, and you would sit there for a period of time, ideally 2 to 6 months, to be able to really restore homeostasis within your body and help it see, right, we're good, we're being looked after, we don't need to store all this body fat, we're fine. And then that way, what you can then do is shift back into a deficit then for a period of time. But emphasis there, period of time, so a phase. And that phase might be 8 to 12 weeks, and that would be your phase. And then what you would then do is you would have periods of time where you would then eat at maintenance to be able to help break up that phase, and you would repeat those phases of fat loss until you hit a weight that is maintainable and happy for you, so that you can then spend long-term periods of time out of a deficit and in that maintenance intake to be able to then basically spend the bulk of your life, ideally, not in a deficit moving forward. In other words, stop living a life built around fat loss. It is not ideal. Be aware that the longer that happens over time, the more that will impact your hormones, your physiology, your mental health. It will create the space for hormone disorders, eating disorders potentially, all sorts, yeah? So if anything you should take from this video is that if you're someone that's been used to trying to diet for the bulk of your life prior, the way forward, especially if you can't budge any weight despite eating anything, is to come out of that restriction and into reversing and restoring a lot of the damage that's gone on internally. And rest assured that it's like this damage can be restored from, right? But be aware that if you don't learn how to restore and how to like get things cranking again, what's probably going to face for you, to be honest, is the scenario where you're good 4 or 5 days of the week and you have crazy binges all weekend and you're back on it again, rinse and repeat with cycles like that. I see it happen all the time. But then obviously the way out of this is to be able to get your body used to the fact that there is nourishment, there is enough calories and energy coming in, and that there's no need for it to do all its stuff to basically protect you, and that it's fine. And then once these signals get consistently, pumped out to it in terms of patterns and signals, you'll be surprised how easy it is to then shift fat after you've finished a successful reverse diet to be able to create the space for fat loss moving forward. This is often the scenario for whenever I'm working with someone in terms of them being, someone that's technically a career dieter in the past, so where they've on and off been dieting for years in their past, and they're kind of just stumped as to how to move forward. So if you have questions around this, drop us a line. I'd love to see if and how I can help. Otherwise, light up the comment section below and I'll drop some value to be able to help you out. Because seriously fam, like life outside of a deficit is fucking amazing, because you're looking and feeling awesome. All your bodily functions are happening as they should. You look and feel fantastic, and that's something that you can maintain long term. And then the only need to be able to go back into a deficit later on is if you want to do like a mini cut for like, a cool event or something like that. Otherwise, you get to experience long term what it's like to be able to just maintain, as opposed to consistently chasing your tail through dieting and being at the mercy's end of your body's adaptation and protective mechanisms. Yeah. So as I said, if you have any questions around this, light up the comment section below. If you're keen to explore and learn what my anti-diet coaching is all about, where I help people that have basically been at the mercy of the dieting and nutrition industry suckhole for ages, be able to free them from that, check out the links in the description below or get in touch. There's lots of ways you can, check me out and see what's what. Otherwise, big love. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in next week's video. Peace, fam.